Welcome back, everybody. Today we're doing a deep dive into the life of Maymoona bint AlHarith,
Oh, absolutely.
one of the wives of the Prophet Muhammad.
Yeah.
Our main source today is going to be a lecture by Dr. Omar Suleiman from the Yaqeen Institute.
Right.
And you might be thinking,
Mm.
why Maymoona? Isn't there more to learn about some of the other
Yeah,
wives?
yeah.
And you'd be right.
Mm-hmm.
There's tons of information out there about them.
Right.
But that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes the less explored corners of history hold the most surprising insights.
That's so true. It's like those hidden gems you find in a museum, you know?
Yeah.
The ones not surrounded by crowds,
Right.
but they offer a unique perspective. Maimuna's story is a perfect example to really grasp her significance, you know?
Yeah.
We need to start with her family.
Okay.
They weren't just your average clan. They were deeply embedded in the social and political fabric of early Islam.
Okay, so paint me a picture of this family.
Sure.
What made them so influential?
Well, her mother, Bint
Oh.
was actually the mother-in-law of the Prophet twice.
Whoa, hold on.
Yeah,
Her mother was the prophet's mother-in-law twice.
twice.
That's unexpected.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about the dynamics of that time?
It reveals a lot about the strategic alliances and the power structures of early Islam.
Mm-hmm.
Marriages weren't just personal matters.
Right.
They were often a key to building relationships
Yeah.
and solidifying political ties.
Yeah, okay.
This family, known as the Banu Halal, were nomadic
Okay.
and known for their resilience and military skills,
Right.
traits that would have been valuable in those uncertain times.
It sounds like a complex web of connections.
Yeah,
Almost like a historical puzzle,
exactly.
where each piece reveals another layer of the story.
Exactly.
And remember, Hind's daughter, Asma bint Umayyah,
Right.
she was married to three of the most prominent figures
I know.
in early Islam:
It's incredible.
Jafar ibn Abi Talib,
Mm-hmm.
Abu Bakr, and Ali ibn Abi Talib.
Yeah, amazing.
Each of these men played crucial roles in shaping the course of the Muslim community.
Absolutely.
Wow, three of the most influential figures.
Right.
Asma bint Umayyah must have been quite a woman to navigate those marriages.
I know, right.
And Maymoona was a part of this extraordinary family, too.
Absolutely.
So we have Maymoona, part of this influential family, an early convert to Islam.
Yes.
What else can you tell us about her life before meeting the Prophet?
Well, her life before marrying the Prophet was actually marked by hardship.
Oh, wow.
She was widowed twice,
Oh.
and without wealth or strong connections,
Mhm.
she was considered one of the weak ones of Mecca.
Right.
It was a vulnerable position to be in,
Yeah.
especially during a time of such social and political upheaval.
That must have been incredibly difficult. I imagine life in Mecca at that time was already challenging,
Oh, yeah.
even without those personal losses.
Absolutely.
Did those hardships shape her decision to marry the Prophet?
It's certainly possible we know that she expressed her desire to marry the Prophet to her family,
Okay.
specifically to her brother-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib.
Right.
This was a bold move.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, was she seeking stability?
Right.
A deeper connection to her faith?
Yeah.
Or perhaps a combination of both?
Right. Those are fascinating questions.
Yeah.
It makes her story feel even more human,
Mm-hmm.
knowing she was navigating these personal challenges
Right.
while also being part of such a pivotal moment in history.
Absolutely.
So what happened next? How did Abbas handle this rather delicate proposal?
Well, Abbas held a unique position with the Prophet.
Okay.
He was respected,
Mm-hmm.
and the Prophet often granted his requests.
Right.
So he approached the Prophet on Maymuna's behalf.
It almost sounds like he had a direct line to the Prophet.
Yeah.
Did that relationship influence the Prophet's decision to accept the proposal?
It might have played a role,
Okay.
but it's important to note that scholars believe a verse in the Quran, 60.122. Mm-hmm.
Actually refers to Maymuna's proposal,
Oh.
suggesting divine approval for the union.
Okay.
It's as though their marriage was part of a larger plan.
Wow. That adds a whole other layer of meaning to their union.
Right.
It wasn't just a marriage between two people.
Yeah.
It had spiritual significance as well.
Exactly. And speaking of significant events, their marriage took place during a rather tense time.
Okay.
This was the Prophet's first return to Mecca after being exiled for 7 years following the Hijra,
Oh, right. The Hijra.
the migration of the Muslims to Medina.
Imagine the emotions returning to your homeland after years of exile.
Right.
It must have been a mix of joy and apprehension.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The Muslims were performing Umrah,
Okay.
a pilgrimage,
Right.
and were overjoyed to be back in Mecca.
Yeah.
But the Prophet, The strategist positioned armed men outside the city as a precaution.
Okay.
He knew trust was still fragile, and he wanted to ensure the safety of his community.
So even amidst the joy, there was an underlying tension.
A reminder of the past conflicts
Mm-hmm.
and the delicate political balance.
Yeah.
Did this tension affect the wedding celebrations?
It did.
How so?
The prophet initially wanted to hold the wedding feast,
Of
or
whom?
walima,
Right,
in Mecca itself.
right.
It was meant to be a gesture of goodwill,
Yeah,
a chance to invite non-Muslims
yeah.
and foster a sense of unity,
Mhm.
but the Meccans, still harboring resentment, rejected the offer.
That's disheartening, but not entirely surprising given their past treatment of the Muslims.
Right.
So what happened?
Well, they ended up holding the walima in Sarif,
Okay,
a location outside the sacred boundaries of Mecca or Haram.
okay.
It's interesting to note that Maymuna's nephew, Khalid ibn al-Walid, was present at this feast.
Yes.
He would later become a prominent figure in Islamic history, converting to Islam and playing a key role in its expansion.
Wow. It's amazing to see how these seemingly small events
Right.
connect to larger historical figures and movement. It's a reminder that history isn't just about grand narratives, it's also about the individual lives that intersect and shape those narratives.
Exactly.
And speaking of names, I understand that Maymoona wasn't her original name.
You're right. Her original name was Bara, but the prophet changed it to Maymoona,
Right.
which means blessed.
Interesting.
Scholars believe this was linked to the joyous occasion of his return to Mecca after years of exile.
Okay.
It was a time of new beginnings, and her name change reflected that sense of hope and blessing.
That's beautiful how her name became a symbol of the positive transformation happening at that time.
It is.
So Maymoona, the Blessed One, is now married to the prophet.
Mhm.
What was their life like together?
Yeah.
It's beautiful how her name became a symbol of the positive transformation happening at that time. So Maymoona, the Blessed One, is now married to the prophet. What was their life like together?
Their home was a place of learning and warmth. Her nephew, Abdullah ibn Abbas, actually came to live with them,
Oh, wow.
which gave him an incredible opportunity to learn directly from the prophet.
You know, it's funny. We actually did a deep dive on Abdullah ibn Abbas's mother,
Right.
Lubaba,
Mm-hmm.
not too long ago.
Yeah.
He's considered one of the most knowledgeable companions of the prophet.
Oh, absolutely.
It's amazing to think he was just a young boy soaking up wisdom in their household.
It really is. There are even stories about him sleeping at the foot of the prophet's bed in Maymuna's room,
Wow.
just so he could observe the prophet's night prayers. That image really speaks to the close-knit nature of the early Muslim community and their dedication to learning.
I could just picture it, this young boy, eager to learn, witnessing the prophet's devotion firsthand.
Right.
What a powerful example of mentorship.
Right.
And speaking of learning, Maymoona herself narrated a number of hadiths,
She did.
sayings, and traditions of the prophet.
Right.
That must give us some insight into her character and the topics she found important.
Absolutely.
What kind of things did she talk about?
Well, many of her narrations focus on practical matters of daily life, especially those related to women. For example, she narrated hadiths about purification rituals
Yeah.
and the etiquette of prayer, things she would have observed closely in her own home. You might find her insights on purification particularly relevant
Yeah.
to your own practice.
You know, it's one thing to read hadiths in a book,
Right.
but it's another to connect them to the real lives of the people who narrated them.
Absolutely.
It adds so much depth and context.
Yeah.
Are there any specific hadith narrated by Maymoona that stand out to you?
One that comes to mind is the hadith about angels not entering a house with dogs.
Oh, yeah.
It's a hadith many are familiar with, but the story behind it is fascinating.
Okay.
And directly involves Maymoona.
Okay, now I have to hear this story. What happened?
Well, the angel Gabriel had promised to visit the prophet,
Okay.
but didn't arrive as expected.
Mm.
This caused the prophet concern. Later, he discovered a dog under a cot in Maymoona's room.
Oh, wow.
After the dog was removed and the area cleansed, Gabriel appeared.
So that's where that hadith comes from. I've heard it countless times, but I never knew the story behind it. It's incredible how these personal anecdotes can shed light on deeper teachings.
Exactly. It's like we're piecing together a mosaic.
Yeah.
Each story, each interaction adds another layer of understanding to the broader picture of early Islam. And on a lighter note, there's another amusing anecdote involving Maymoona that shows her quick wit.
Okay.
Remember the day of Arafat?
Yes.
A crucial day during Hajj when Muslims fast and pray for forgiveness?
Of course.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important days in the Islamic calendar.
Well, on this particular day, the companions weren't sure if the prophet was fasting.
Okay.
He was deep in prayer, and they didn't want to interrupt him to ask.
Right.
Maimuna, sensing their dilemma, sent him a cup of milk.
I see what you did there.
Yeah,
A subtle way to get the answer without a direct question.
precisely. And the prophet, understanding her intention, drank from the cup in full view of everyone,
Clever.
subtly signaling that he wasn't fasting that day.
It's a small gesture,
Mm.
but it reveals so much about Maymuna's character, her perceptiveness,
Right.
her consideration for others, and her ability to navigate potentially awkward situations with grace.
Yeah.
It also shows a human side to the prophet,
Yes.
his understanding of the unspoken, his connection with those around him.
It does. It reminds us that these figures we study weren't just historical figures. They were real people living real lives
Yeah.
with all the complexities and nuances that come with that.
So true. We've talked about Maymuna's family, her marriage, her life with the prophet, the hadiths she narrated.
Right.
What about her life after the prophet passed away?
Right.
How did she navigate that transition?
After the prophet's death, Maimuna chose a simple, almost ascetic lifestyle.
Okay.
She intentionally avoided luxury and excess. It's interesting because we know she had a habit of taking loans,
Really?
even when she was married to the prophet.
That's surprising. Why would she need to borrow money, especially given her position?
It highlights her commitment to living humbly and relying on Allah's provision. When questioned about it, she defended her practice by citing a hadith that distinguishes between responsible borrowing with the intention of repayment
Right.
and intentionally defaulting on loans.
So it wasn't about accumulating wealth or living beyond her means. It was about a deeper principle of financial responsibility and trust in God. That's a powerful message, especially in today's world where we're constantly bombarded with messages about material possessions.
Absolutely. Her example encourages us to be mindful of our financial dealings and to approach them with integrity. And this challenges the common misconception that the prophet's wives all lived lavish lifestyles. Each of them had their own unique approach to life, and Maimuna's story reveals a focus on piety and simplicity.
It's a great reminder that there are many ways to live a fulfilling life, and material wealth isn't the only measure of success. Did Maymuna's influence extend beyond her personal piety? Did she have a lasting impact on the wider community?
She was known for regularly freeing slaves, which was a commendable act in itself. But what's truly remarkable is that she would make duha a heartfelt supplication
Wow.
for each person she freed
Wow.
before granting them their freedom. It wasn't just a transaction, it was an act of compassion and spiritual guidance. She genuinely cared about their well-being even beyond their physical freedom.
That's a beautiful detail.
Yeah,
It speaks to the depth of her faith and her concern for the less fortunate. It wasn't just about freeing them physically, it was about empowering them spiritually as well.
exactly. And her actions had a ripple effect.
Okay.
Many of those she freed went on to become scholars and hadith narrators,
Wow.
contributing to the spread of Islamic knowledge and playing a vital role in shaping the intellectual landscape of the community.
Wow, that's an incredible legacy. By empowering these individuals, she indirectly contributed to the transmission of knowledge for generations to come.
Absolutely.
It really highlights the power of individual actions and the interconnectedness of the early Muslim community.
It also challenges the idea that social mobility was limited in early Islam. These individuals, regardless of their former status,
Right.
were able to rise to positions of influence and scholarship through their knowledge and piety. Maimuna's role in this process shouldn't be underestimated.
It's an inspiring story, a testament to both Maymuna's generosity and the community's willingness to embrace and elevate those who possess knowledge and virtue, regardless of their background. It's a reminder that positive change can start with small acts of kindness and compassion.
Absolutely. And as we approach the end of Maimuna's journey, it's worth noting that she outlived all the Prophet's other wives.
Oh, wow.
She continued to perform Hajj every year, demonstrating her enduring faith and devotion.
It speaks volumes about her resilience and her commitment to her beliefs, even in the face of personal loss and the passing of time. It's clear that her connection to her faith was a constant throughout her life. So what can you tell us about her final years? How did her story come to a close? It speaks volumes about her resilience and her commitment to her beliefs, even in the face of personal loss and the passing of time. It's clear that her connection to her faith was a constant throughout her life. So what can you tell us about her final years? How did her story come to a close?
Well, as she grew older and her health declined, she requested to be taken back to Sarif,
Okay.
the very place where she married the Prophet.
That's an interesting detail. Why Sarif? Was there something special about that location for her?
It seems she remembered a hadith predicting that she wouldn't die in Mecca.
Oh, wow.
And as fate would have it, she passed away in Sarif
Okay.
65 years after her marriage
Go.
and was buried there.
That seems almost poetic, ending her journey where it began. It speaks to the significance of that location and that moment in her life.
It really does. And during her funeral, her nephew, Abdullah ibn Abbas, led the prayer and reminded everyone to treat her body with respect,
Wow.
calling her your mother.
What a powerful statement. It highlights the deep familial bonds within the early Muslim community, extending that sense of kinship even beyond blood ties.
It speaks to the respect and reverence they had for the Prophet's wives, seeing them as mothers of the community.
It's incredible to think about the arc of Maymoona's life. We started with her as a vulnerable widow in Mecca, and through her faith and her marriage to the Prophet, she found not only security but also a platform to make a real impact on the world around her.
Absolutely.
What a story.
It's a testament to her strength and her resilience. She was a woman who embraced change and used her position to elevate others, whether it was through freeing slaves,
Right.
encouraging her nephew's pursuit of knowledge, or simply living a life of piety and humility.
And to think her burial site located near Mecca on the road to Medina still stands today, a physical marker of her life and legacy. It's a reminder that even those who might not be as well known can leave an enduring impact on history.
It's a reminder that history is made up of individual stories, each one adding a unique thread to the tapestry of human experience.
This deep dive has been truly illuminating. We've uncovered hidden connections, gained a deeper understanding of familiar hadiths, and learned about a remarkable woman whose life and legacy offers so much to reflect on.
Absolutely.
I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.
I did too.
I encourage you to explore further, perhaps research the hadith she narrated, or even visit her burial site if you ever have the opportunity. It's a chance to connect with history on a personal level and gain a deeper appreciation for the individuals who shaped our world.
Couldn't agree more.
What a fantastic journey this has been. It's amazing how much we can learn from exploring the lives of those who came before us. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the spirit of curiosity alive.